Hello there, lovely woman beings, and Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy whatever Christmas festive winter-themed holiday that you are celebrating this year. We are all celebrators of Christmas, and we are stoked to talk to you today about the very festive, very exciting, very happy, very uplifting topic of Christmas and consumerism.
Aww.
So strap in, guys. It's going to be a wild ride. Welcome to the Woman Being podcast community,
where we explore thoughts and opinions
and have the freedom to change our minds.
Without expectation or judgment,
we will hold a safe space and support each other
as we navigate together in the form of feminine.
Merry Christmas, guys and gals, woman beings and man beings and everything in between beings. I'm here today with the lovely Kelly and Kellyanne. I'm Emma, and we are here to bring you some festive holiday cheer.
Woo!
But really just a lot of sort of depressing things. But we're wearing fun sweaters, so that makes up for it, right?
Yes. It definitely does.
So ladies, as you know, I myself am already quite passionate about things such as consumerism, environmentalism, all the things that come along with that. It's all very intersected across various issues that happen on this big old earth that we live on. But I guess I want to sort of open up this conversation by hearing from you guys sort of what you guys think of when we talk about the consumerism surrounding Christmas and like what your sort of first thought is of it, and maybe a little bit on how your idea of that has evolved over the years.
Yeah. It's great. Sure. I mean, what first comes to mind when I hear the word consumerism is kind of like the evangelical Christian take on it, which is essentially that Christmas is about Jesus, not about things. So stop worrying about buying things and just like celebrate Jesus instead. And that to me, like kind of materialism, consumerism is seen as like a bad thing that America is, and that America encapsulates, but not necessarily related to the waste or the overconsumption or the useless crap that just gets thrown in a landfill eventually that we feel pressure to purchase. It's always been sort of like framed in the sense of Christians should be focusing on the birth of Jesus right now, not on gifts. And everyone sort of feels shame about that, and then they go home and they buy gifts for all their friends and family anyways. So but yeah, as I'm kind of alluded to, over the last few years, I've been growing in my understanding of environmentalism and like the serious issues that our country and the world are suffering from because of consumerism and the extreme effects on the environment and other countries that we're just sending our trash to are dealing with. So I think, yeah, it's kind of grown from being like a bad Christian slap on the wrist kind of conversation to a like, oh my gosh, we are like in global crisis kind of conversation. So
yeah. I mean, I do think that to an extent, the thought of like keep the Christ in Christmas is valid.
Yes, I'm not knocking that. But I mean, like in terms of sermons that we've heard throughout our life at Christmas time, that's the one. It's not about presents. It's about Jesus. And it's like, okay, but it's also about presents.
But also, get me the bike I want.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting, too, to me because so many people celebrate Christmas that aren't even necessarily Christians.
Yes.
Who wouldn't identify as Christians and don't really even associate the holiday with Christ. Or sort of, like, have a back of their mind understanding, like, oh, yeah, I guess this is, like, about the birth of this guy Jesus, but, like, I don't really have any sort of acknowledgement towards him in this time. This is not my God. This is not my thing. Like, I just celebrate Christmas because my family has celebrated Christmas for decades and we love Christmas and it's fun and we give gifts, you know? So that's always been like a bizarre thing to me.
Yeah. Well, I guess the main thing that I'm trying to point out is that it went from being a moral issue, which it is, to like like realizing that there are tangible, very real consequences to this moral issue that we have is like our need to have stuff and to give stuff and to receive stuff actually has a huge impact on our world and our environment and other people. And it's like a real problem. It's not just sort of like oh, don't lie, slap on the wrist, go be a good person kind of thing. It's not really about like our righteousness as a whole, even though it is. But it's like, oh, this is actually like a crisis that we need to be paying attention to, I would say is how I've evolved. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can relate to what you said. We always, we grew up pretty poor, but my parents always made it a point to try and have a really fun, really amazing Christmas. But with that being said, it was also like, we're going to fill our stockings with things from Dollar General that we're going to actually, go in the trash. And so even as I've moved away and grew up, I just stopped. I didn't want cheap things because out of the practicality of like, I just don't want to deal with it when it breaks or like, I don't want dumb stuff to just hang out. Yeah. It's mostly laziness of like, I don't want to deal with clutter. It like stresses me out. And so I started really like being very intentional of like, please do not get me anything that's not on my list. And I know that's not always the fun conversation to have. Like even with like our wedding registry when we got married, I was like, here's my registry. Please don't buy me anything that's not on my registry. I don't want a fountain birdhouse that your cousin made by hand. Like it, and it's mostly out of selfishness. It's not really like any, I mean, I've grown in awareness and like the need to like recycle and, sustainability in general. But my journey started out of practicality and not wanting to feel stress from clutter. So yeah, and now moving into like, I work in retail. Like that's an interesting tension. Like I sell goods. I know how to find suppliers in China. Like that's an interesting tension to have of like delivering product that's quality, that's going to last, that people are going to want to keep in their home for a long time, and that's going to have a long shelf life, while at the same time being aware and making sure you're being responsible. So it's definitely an interesting dance.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that, like I mentioned, it's all sort of intersects. There's this whole concept of intersectionality, which is that, like, for anyone who doesn't know, that's that issues like environmentalism, racism, sexism, global poverty, world hunger, all those things are actually interconnected, and you can't solve one without solving the others. And I think that similarly, like you mentioned, like you don't want the sort of the stress of having all that clutter in your home, like that is a mental health issue then. And so that mental health is also impacting the environment because you're choosing to reduce your amount of things, which is the first thing on the reduce, reuse, recycle. It's the first thing you're supposed to do is reduce. Like you are still having an environmental impact, even though that's not your intention, because they are so interconnected.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I think that also it's interesting because you talk about like you working in retail. Like I know that you've even seen firsthand like things getting thrown away.
Yeah. Or
wanting to get thrown away, and then you save them from getting thrown away.
I do.
Which is amazing.
It's so frustrating. I mean, I used to work at Victoria's Secret, and it was the best. I loved it. I don't know if I could work for the company today, but when I did, it was just an amazing, incredible treasure of a job. But people would get lazy, and instead of running their go-backs, they would fill out damage tags. And as the newest manager, I would be like, what are you doing? And I'd pull like bras and lingerie and all this stuff out of damage bags. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. We're not throwing this away. There's no tears. There's no stains. Or even if it was deodorant, like I would actually get wet wipes to like rub deodorant out so that we could actually put it back on the floor. There's no point in throwing money away that you don't have to throw away. And so, yeah, it's an interesting, again, it's a dance. It's you kind of go back and forth, and sometimes you feel a little bit of shame, sometimes you feel a little bit of victory. But, you know, back to what you were saying about like the mental health thing, like, yeah, it is a mental health thing. And if I have less things in my home, I actually have more emotional capacity to make better decisions with what I do have in my home. Yeah. Like, I have space now to, like, you know, let's take our cardboard out. Let's take our glass out. Let's make sure we're doing smart things that might, like, my attention might be other places. If it was like, I have this giant box of dumb shit that I don't want, you know, and like, what do I do with that? Mm-hmm, and then it's like, well, I can't deal with this other trash right now because I have this box of trash that I feel responsible for.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there is so much, like, I think about, like, the thing that I feel like is, at least in my experience, one of the biggest culprits of this sort of useless gifts is, like, little stocking stuffers. And it'll be, like, a little, like, one of those little, like, plastic maze games with, like, a little ball in it. And it's, like, Christmas themed. And it's, like, cool, I'll, like, play this for 5 seconds and then, like, throw it away or stuff it somewhere and never remember it again. Yeah. Like, I wasn't seeking a tiny maze game with a little metal ball in it for Christmas. And it was just given because it's like, oh, well, we need to fill your stocking.
Yeah, you got to have things. Stuff in your stocking.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, first of all, I'm not 7 anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I still get stockings. I don't know if you guys do, but we still do
stockings. Are pretty important to me.
I love stockings, actually. They're one of my favorite parts about Christmas. But like,
fill it intentionally.
Yeah, you put things like makeup or, you know, a small little candle things. Or, you know, there are
like chocolates that you know they like.
You know, consumable things that you can actually eat or you would use or, you know, like a little sunscreen or a hand sanitizer, like things that people actually need kind of stuff. This is how I...
Hand sanitizer is going to be the number one gift this
year. 2020.
I used to get so annoyed when I would receive hand sanitizer, and nowadays it's like, yes, I got some hand sanitizer.
You know, we all get those little... We all have that awkward space in a drawer of, like, you know, those 99-cent little bottles of hand sanitizer. I've used, like, all of them this year.
Those saved my life.
Yeah.
The fact that I had random little bottles of hand sanitizer all around my house. And then the pandemic hit, and I was like,
praise God.
I have these. Because at the time, there was nothing on the shelves. You couldn't get any. Yeah. And I was like, well, I just happen to have this stash of sanitizer.
This awkward Bath and Body where it's, like, melon scented with the little beads in it.
Yes.
But it's hand sanitizer. Yes. It might be 9 years old, but it still works.
It still works.
Yeah. I will say that those little beads are really bad for the environment.
Oh, no,
but you
they're
should
terrible.
Still use them if you have them.
If you have them, use them. But
don't buy them again.
James actually made this decision to switch our face wash that we both were using for a long time. It's a really nice, like, I won't even name the brand because some people might buy it. But it has those little plastic beads in it because it exfoliates. And James was like, that ends up in the ocean. It kills the fish. We can't use it. And I was like, aw, but okay.
Yeah, I mean, and according to Skincare by Hiram, those are actually bad for your face.
They're not good for you.
Skincare by Hiram. Shout out. We love you.
If you're a listener.
We just have a little random plug. But
we all follow your skincare advice.
Yes. Yes. As you can tell.
Yeah.
Anyways,
I'm kidding.
A bit off topic. To rein it back in a little bit, I think that, like, why do you guys think that is? There's just so much pressure to get a certain amount of gifts for people, and to, like, make sure that there's sort of this quota that's being reached. Mm-hmm. Like, where does that even come from?
I mean, it's a combination probably of culture and social circles and marketing and just what we've allowed things to become. Like, it doesn't happen overnight. There are slow steps that eventually you're like, wait, how did I get here? Like, you know, you just look back 20, 30 years ago. It's like people might be still getting crap, but it might not still be at the same level that it is today. I mean, you can look at e-commerce sales and retail sales. And I mean, this year we exceeded 2018 by, I think it was $80 billion.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
And it was the biggest
pandemic.
thanks pandemic. And it was the biggest Black Friday weekend was the biggest e-commerce day to date. I think it exceeded like 30% to last year or 33%, somewhere in there. Don't quote me exactly. But it's a slow climb, but all of a sudden you reach the top of the mountain and you're like, wow, we have a big problem. I also think, there's pressure. People, again, growing up in a poor family, you're like, I want to show this person I love them and I want to get them a gift, but maybe I only have $5. You are going to go to the dollar store.
Yeah.
Like that's what you're going to do. And so I think maybe having more open conversations about those things within families, friend circles, and just having that openness and that understanding. Like, the gift is not really the gift you give, it's the memories you create together.
Yeah.
That's actually a really good point, because it seems like top level we have advertisers and marketing efforts that are telling you, like, this is what you need to have a happy Christmas, because that's what their job is. Their job is to sell stuff, and they do a great job at it. And then that sort of trickles down to people who can afford those types of things, who, like, you know, buy up stuff, and that's great. And then it trickles down and down and down, where you're at the person who's under the poverty line, and they have to have presents for their kids in order for it to be a happy Christmas, because that's what the messaging has trickled down. And so they're going to the dollar store. They're going to, you know, the Forever 21s and the Rue 21s and the cheap places to make sure that their kids have, like, plenty, which is essentially kind of this abundant overflow of stuff kind of seems to be the Christmas message in a lot of ways. And that's where companies start generating cheap stuff that they can sell for really cheap, because it caters to the lower income level families.
Yeah. I do also want to point out those things that you're buying for $3, companies are manufacturing for 2 cents.
Yeah.
Like, I do, like, for people that don't know, like, those things are being mass produced and manufactured in China, poorer countries, maybe Mexico, you know. And while it's great that people can have jobs over there manufacturing those things, there's things like working conditions and the sustainability of those items, and those things truly cost nothing. You would be much better saving up your $3 over a span of time and buying something quality than something that's literally manufactured for a cent.
And then on top of that, we have Secret Santas and
white elephants.
And other, like, you know, work, school, holiday parties where you have, like, a $10 limit or a $15 limit, and everyone's trying to figure out how to find something for that person that's both affordable and also, like, substantial enough to
and
make
something they're gonna want.
Right. And there's also stigmas against used things, and so you can't get something someone from you can't do Goodwill, or you can't do whatever. And so there's all this pressure, it feels like, to, like, find a good gift for someone that's in the range of whatever you have to spend, and that creates all this useless crap that somebody receives, and because it's Secret Santa and they don't know you because you're a distant coworker that, you know, you've barely talked to, and, you know, you either give it away or re-gift it or throw it away.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think that I love you brought up worker conditions. I think we should talk about that soon.
Yes.
Definitely.
But I also want to flesh this out a little bit more, which is, like, we need to take steps to normalize something like a secondhand gift.
Yeah.
Like, I am genuinely, like, so excited to get something that is secondhand. I think about last year, like, on my Christmas list that I send to my parents, because I do still send my parents Christmas list because they ask for it, and I also don't want them to get me crap I don't want.
Yes.
As you said, Kelly.
Yes. I think we should normalize Christmas lists.
Yes,
actually.
normalize Christmas list. It doesn't have to be some, like, surprise.
Yeah.
It really doesn't. You're still excited to receive the gift. You're excited that they bought it. You didn't have to spend your money on it. And also, I try to give them a variety of options so that then I don't necessarily know what thing of the things I told them I was getting.
Exactly.
But like, last year for Christmas, I was asking for an Instant Pot, and I was like, I would love to have an Instant Pot, but don't buy me one new. Like, if you can find one secondhand somewhere, like, that's fantastic. That's what I would want. And one of our close family friends had an Instant Pot that has been sitting in his cupboard of his kitchen for probably years that he just never used. He used, like, once. And then he was, like, never motivated to use it, and just found that it wasn't useful for him in his kitchen. So he just gave it to me. And they actually, my mom and him, like, seemed a little bit almost apologetic, like, oh, sorry, like, I'm just giving you this thing that was, like, in my kitchen already, and I
Didn't
didn't
cost
spend
me anything.
Yeah, I didn't spend money on it, but like you said you wanted it secondhand, and so I hope this is okay. And I was like, this is amazing. Like, that's perfect.
One
like,
less
exactly, one less Instant Pot that's being wasted, that's just
Yeah.
sitting there gathering
Yeah.
dust, and I use it all the time. I love it.
Yeah.
So like I think that we need to normalize that and realize like, oh, it's actually okay to like pick out clothes from Goodwill to give to your friend, because you can find great quality clothes at Goodwill.
I actually, one of my favorite gifts that I've ever received was from Goodwill as a first day of work boss lady gift from Kellyanne, who is the
You
thrifting
guys.
master.
I found a Dolce & Gabbana blazer at Goodwill for like $12.99. It was the best find of my life. And I
Yeah.
was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with this, but I'm buying it. And then I saved it for Kelly when she got a crazy, amazing producer job. So you can find amazing things.
Yeah.
You
And
really
I think
can.
also normalizing like making gifts as well. Like one thing that is a really great and sustainable way to give a gift is to bake or to cook something for someone. You can make them sort of like a care package of treats and different things like that. And you've also put your hard work into that and like your heart into that and given them something they can consume. And like food and stuff in general is also just really great as a gift or wine or because people can consume
the
those
wine.
things.
Yeah.
You're like, yes, give
Yeah.
me wine.
And
me
you
the
can
wine.
recycle tins and jars and like
Yeah.
things like that to use as receptacles for said types
Exactly.
of gifts.
You can go to Goodwill. They have tons of Christmas cookie tins if you want to make Christmas cookies
awesome.
for people. So I think normalizing those things is really
Yeah.
important. And even for something like a white elephant party,
Right.
like intentionally getting things that are thrifted, that are secondhand, that are definitely things that people are going to use, giving gift cards.
Digital gift cards.
Regifting
Yeah.
something you
Regifting.
received that was crap that you didn't want that you can just pass along, you know, instead of throwing it
I would-
away.
yeah, because I honestly like I'm a huge Christmas fan.
Yeah.
and I love Christmas, even though I see all of these the negative sides of sort of the impact of Christmas, and the consumerism that's become like sort of synonymous with it. But like you can have a fun time and do a fun party like a white elephant and still do it sustainably. It's just that we need to slowly shift people's mindsets on a larger scale
Yeah.
to think of that,
Yeah.
you know?
And I've actually had experiences where I've given gifts that are like a regift or a used gift or whatever, or something I got for free because somebody didn't want it or whatever. And you kind of like silently sort of pass it along and like hope they don't figure out that it was like from the thrift store or, you know, et cetera. You just sort of like pretend that like,
Yeah.
here you go. And it's like a little embarrassing sometimes, even if it's a good gift, you know?
Yeah.
And that should not be embarrassing.
No, for some
Should be
reason we
like-
gift it with an apology.
Right.
I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, here's something that I had, but I thought you would like, so I'm sorry, it's not that
Yeah.
great. And it's like, well, maybe it is. Like, if you know someone and that item would be perfect for them, like, that should be allowed.
Yeah, that should be okay.
Yeah.
For sure. And in terms of quantity of gifts too, like I keep thinking of the scene in Harry Potter when it's in the first one. It's Dudley's birthday, and he like has this pile of presents. It's filling the entire living room, and he's like, how many gifts are there? And his father's like, oh, I think it's 36. And then he's like, 36? Last year I had 37. And it's like, what? And we see images of this all the time in popular media. Like, I think I also, for some reason, think of an episode of Fairly Odd Parents, the cartoon from back in the day, where they have like, he wishes to have Christmas every day or something. And there's just mounds of presents everywhere throughout this episode. And then they slowly dwindle down because they're like, we're running out of presents. We're having Christmas every day. But like, that's like so ingrained in our mindset is that there needs to be just this overwhelming abundance and there needs
Right.
to be a certain number, or even like, one thing I've seen in my family is like, oh, each sibling needs to get the same amount of gifts.
Right.
And it's like, no, that's actually not true. Like, I mean, if your kids are like upset because they didn't get the same amount of gifts as another kid, then like,
It's probably good for them. Like,
Yeah.
get over it, Toots. Life isn't fair.
But in
Like,
terms of like, we've kind of circled around this idea of the negative impacts of Christmas and consumerism at Christmas time and Black Friday, etc. Emma, could you break down kind of like what those statistics are that we're referring to? Like what really is happening to our environment every Christmas?
Well, I mean, okay, so there's so many different things that you could go into in terms of just the environmental impact of Christmas time. I mean, to just throw a couple of initial things out, like obviously there's a huge environmental impact on the amount of travel that happens at Christmas time. I'm also a culprit of this because I fly home for Christmas, and flying is like a huge environmental effector because planes just require so much fuel. But on top of that, like you are, there's so many items that get purchased just to be thrown away. Like there's so much that is being purchased out of that obligation that then winds up in returns, that winds up getting shoved to the back of somebody's closet and then eventually thrown away by them later on because they forgot about it. And then they were like, oh, here's this thing that I didn't want, and I just sort of shoved to the back and threw it away. And the issue with that is that we already have like a trash problem. We have a huge waste problem. We have literal islands of waste in the ocean, and we have nations that are overwhelmed with the waste of first world countries. First world, it's a problematic phrase, but with very developed countries and more well-off countries, sort of shoving their waste onto these lower income countries, these nations that are already suffering from poverty, and that poverty was a lot of times inflicted on them by colonialism coming from these huge countries. There's like a whole rabbit hole we could go down with it, but a couple of little statistics that go along with it are that there's about $13 billion of unwanted Christmas gifts that are purchased every year. Whether that's gag gifts, that's white elephant gifts, that's buying a gift just to get someone a gift because you feel like you need to. There's a bunch of different reasons why it happens, or you're just, I don't know, bad at getting people gifts. Some people don't have the gift of being able to get people good gifts. I think that like that's a huge financial waste. Like people don't even realize like how much money they're really spending with that. But then on top of that, like there's a huge issue of online purchases that have been returned winding up just going to landfill. So according to Optora, which is a tech company that like manages I think they essentially like track the amount of waste that different companies are producing in their retail. And according to them, about 5 billion pounds of items are returned wind up just in a landfill every year. So like if you take that into account and also take into account $13 billion of unwanted Christmas gifts, like that is a huge chunk of that 5 billion pounds of stuff that's going into a landfill. And like that's like I don't think we have a very hard time really even thinking about that when we're getting gifts. We think we're trying to do something nice, and we have such good intentions a lot of the time. And I think a lot of people want to sort of turn a blind eye to the amount of things that actually get wasted and the impact of those things, because you also have to think about not only did these things wind up in a landfill and they're now literally just clogging up the earth, but you have to think about all the resources that it took to make that item in the first place. Mm-hmm. Think about the oil that was used to produce that plastic. Mm-hmm. Think about all the water that was used. Think about all the shipping as it went from country to country to be assembled, to be put together, to wind up then in the United States or in England or in whatever well-off nation it got to. Like that is also such, maybe even a bigger impact than the back end. Mm-hmm. And we don't see that, and we don't think about that. Right. And we've become so detached from the items that we purchase, where we don't even recognize the way that they have actually impacted not just the environment, but also individuals. Mm-hmm. They've impacted people, which is something that you touched on, Kelly Ann. Like there's so many people that are impacted by every single thing that we buy and by these different lifestyle choices that we make. And it's also a women's issue.
It really is a women's issue.
It is, which is something that it's really heartbreaking when you think about, like, there are so many women in these big sort of production hub of countries like Bangladesh, like Cambodia, like China, who are being negatively impacted by the consumerism that we buy into without really a thought. And there's, I know, Kellyanne, you were talking the other day about learning about the way cell phones are made.
Yeah. You guys, it's a rude awakening, and ignorance truly is bliss, but it's really sad. So they use children, actually, mostly, to mine for the materials that your battery is made of in your phone. And that's not just one cell phone company. It's Apple, it's Android, it's a good majority of them. And so it's actually hard to find. I was listening to a podcast on Joe Rogan that actually they talk about this, and they're like, it's actually really hard to find a sustainably well-sourced cell phone. It's actually almost impossible, and that's really heartbreaking. And I'm glad that, you know, companies are doing these like exchange programs now where it's like you can send in your old phone, we'll refurbish it, we sell it, and give you a discount on your new phone. But still, it's really heartbreaking to hear about.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, like, I feel like I've just sort of layered a lot of things on all at once, and I can get kind of ranty when I talk about these things. But, like, there are solutions to things like that. There's small solutions that we can take, which are, like, there's tons of websites that allow you to purchase secondhand technology, secondhand cell phones. Maybe you'll be one generation behind of what the newest release was. But you can get a secondhand phone. You can get refurbished phones. You can turn in your old phone to be recycled. There's lots of recycling programs for things like that. And for a lot of things that we sort of just throw away. The other day I was actually looking into a recycling program for eyeglasses because I just got a new pair of glasses, and I was like, what do I do with this old pair? And there's programs that either refurbish them and take those glasses and provide them to people who can't afford to buy eyeglasses and need it to help them with their vision, or they properly recycle them if they're not refurbishable. And so there's so many things, and I think that we just, like, it's so easy to just toss something into the trash and just throw it away, that we forget, like, oh, if I just take another step, if I do a little bit of Googling and figure out what I can do that's a better option, then I can work towards that. And I mean, to talk about it being a woman's issue too, another statistic I have is that according to the UN, 80% of the people who will be displaced by climate change are women. That's because women are more susceptible to poverty. They are more likely to be a provider in the home in these less well-off nations, and then therefore more impacted by things like droughts or floods that would impede them from being able to work. On top of that, so many women, especially in the garment working industry, are constantly at risk of their lives or their well-being while they're in their workplace. Like, they're not only severely underpaid, and I've heard the argument of, like, well, at least they're being paid, but, like, they're still being underpaid for the nation they're in. Like, it's disproportionate. Even though this is an impoverished nation, they are in the bottom tier of that poverty. And there's been a lot of protests and sort of uprisings actually in the past few years. I know especially in Cambodia, there's been protests of garment workers saying, hey, we actually, like, we can't
We actually
do
have to,
this.
like, afford to feed our children.
Yes.
And, like, you know, pay for things. And poverty then leads into things like human trafficking and other things where people who are so poor can't afford to feed their families, and they send their young daughters off to, like, be trafficked and get tricked into that.
Well,
and sometimes
even
intentionally do that.
Oh, yeah. It's unfortunately, it is sometimes intentional. But even what you were saying about poor working conditions, there are a lot of factories that actually have to put nets around the outsides of the facility because people will be so depressed because of the poor working conditions that they'll actually try to commit suicide. And it's actually easier to prevent them from committing suicide and keep the worker than to actually deal with the mess of someone taking their life, which is really heartbreaking. And as I've worked with a team in China, I'm very blessed that we have an incredible liaison over there that goes and tours each factory and looks at the working conditions and, asks all those hard questions before we do business. So thankfully my conscience is clean with those things, but it is very interesting to hear about their culture, that these people actually leave their families to come to the city to work, to provide for them. And it's a very different culture. I'm not saying it's a right or wrong culture. It's just interesting to see the full circle of how it truly impacts all areas.
Not to mention young girls that are being pulled from their education.
Yes.
Because their family needs them to be working.
Yeah.
It's true.
I mean, and women are like, so many women within factory industry are not only under threat of their health because of poor working conditions, but they're also under threat of sexual assault and of rape, whether that's from their managers and the people that are above them who are abusing their power, because these women are seen as powerless and worthless, essentially, but also under threat just in their day-to-day lives as they are walking to and from the factory, as they are in a culture that does not respect women, and most cultures do not respect women, ours included. But there's so much that's at risk for them, and there's so much of women being that sort of that sole person that the family can rely on, and they're bearing this huge burden and responsibility, and they're not even really given the credit in that. And they're not given the compensation that they should receive. They're not given the respect that they should receive for this huge responsibility. And the whole reason why we're even bringing this up is because our purchase is affirming or dissenting against those acts.
Yep.
My purchase, where I choose to buy things from, is either saying I think this system is okay or I don't think the system's okay.
Right.
Whether I choose to purchase something from an ethically made company that has fair trade and fair wages and good environmental practices, or if I choose to purchase something from somewhere that doesn't have all those things or doesn't have transparency about those things. I don't know what they're doing, or I might know what they're doing, and that's...
You're complicit.
Yeah, you are. And I mean, I think that that feels like a very, very heavy burden when we think about it that way. But I think that on top of all of this, the United States and Western culture in general has a very individualistic mindset. It's all about me, and I'm gonna get mine. I'm gonna care for mine, and that's it. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
When really we are in a global economy and therefore should have a global mindset.
Right.
Just because we don't feel the impacts of something like climate change or poverty doesn't mean that it's not affecting our fellow humans. And we should care for them. That's biblical, and also just decent humanity.
Well, and here's the hardest pill to swallow, is that we women, it's not just us in America, but us American women are the worst perpetrators of it. We are the ones who hold the checkbooks. We are the ones who are being who are battling messages of you need this and that and this and that for beauty standards and ways to be accepted in society, etc. And we're giving into all of that pressure at the expense of hundreds of thousands to millions of other women who are breaking their backs so that we can have a new shirt for X event.
Yeah.
And that's really the heartbreaking part, is that as women, we as a whole have to stand up together and say no to this, because it's not really an individual problem, it's a societal problem. And the structures and the societal expectations that we've accepted and then placed on each other is the reason that people are dealing with this on a mass scale.
Well, and then you even get into products made for men versus products made for women. So it is proven that women are more likely to have products marketed and created for them that are actually not going to work, because if we will buy it because we feel like we need it for whatever reason. Men don't put up with that. If they buy something and it actually doesn't work, they're gonna be vocal about it. They're gonna return it. They're gonna whatever, which is an interesting thing. So that's why when you go to the store, you look at shaving cream, for example. Women have 10, 12, 15 options. You go over to the men's side, they have like 4, or razors. Women have a million razor options versus men, they have,
a few.
4. And that's why women actually tend to buy men's razors. And so you also have to look at it from that perspective. Like, companies are generating profit based on women will put up with something that might not be perfect, right, especially when women are the purchasing agents of the household. So when you're doing marketing or doing any kind of analysis of your demographic, you're really looking at how many women do we have and what age range are they in, and what are they actually most likely to respond to. Now, those things can be good.
Right, when it comes to raising money for like good nonprofits and charities, and like women do also a lot of really great things with their pocketbook, but
yes,
the problem that we need to look at is how willing are we to spend our money just for the sake of getting a good deal, as opposed to making conscious decisions about where we want that money going and the type of people that we want that money influencing.
Yeah. Also looking back at the products made for men versus products made for women. Women's products are more expensive.
Oh, yeah.
Versus men, because we'll buy it. Like, we don't care. I mean, some of us do care. But,
we're trying, I think I'm learning to care.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think, I'm learning how to understand that I would rather spend X amount on a pair of jeans or something, and know, the chain which it comes down, and knowing that it's promoting ethical practices in business throughout the world, as opposed to being like, oh, but I could get a really good deal at this clearance section at Forever 21. Making that decision to be like, I'm actually going to withhold this cute thing and instead choose the brands that are basically creating a world that I want to live in. Like, if you think about it, our dollar has so much effect.
You vote with your dollar.
Yeah, you really do.
Well, and I mean, brands aren't selling you clothes or tech or whatever. They're selling you a lifestyle that they're presenting to you to say, hey, if you have this, you'll be just as beautiful, just as well off, just as whatever as this person.
You can be like Kylie. You can be like Jennifer Lopez, or whoever the
J-Lo, queen.
Yeah, another thing that I actually think of with the whole idea of deals. There's so many Christmas deals that happen. There's so many gift baskets and so many kits that you can get. You can get makeup kits and lotion kits and pajamas and kitchenware and whatever.
Cheese and
so many
hot
things.
Cocoa.
You can get all these different things. And I heard a story of a friend's parent who their dad would always buy their mom this perfume that she really loved for Christmas. But the seller of the perfume had a special Christmas gift set every year that also included a lotion that was the same scent. And so he would get that because it was actually the same price as just buying the perfume. And their mother never used the lotion. They didn't like the lotion. They didn't want the lotion. But their father said, oh, this is a good deal because I'm getting 2 for the price of 1. So this is just what I have to buy. This is the logical thing to do. And it's actually being wasted because they don't want that lotion. Yeah. So we have this mindset of this is such a great deal. Yeah. I have to buy this. Or I'm getting so many different things, but it's actually they probably don't want all those things that are in that gift set.
It's this bundle mindset. It's I can snag you in if I offer you all of these things.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you really just wanted that one thing.
Yeah. Exactly.
And so it's being conscious about those little marketing techniques that are, it's similar when we talked about the social dilemma and the way that the algorithm is built to keep you engaged on social media. It's the marketing algorithm is built to make you spend your dollars on things that you don't need. That's how it's built.
Yeah.
And so when you're aware that, okay, this is the game that I'm playing, you can start to make more conscious decisions about like, do I need this? Do I want it? And like, where do I want to source it from? And who's going to be affected by my purchases?
Yeah. Side note, I personally have a beef with perfume gift sets that come with lotion. With soaps. Those things are so bad for you. Like, yes, perfume in general is bad for you because it's alcohol and it's drying out your skin. But that's like one area. If you're using like perfume lotion on your hands, like, girl, you're going to be crusty. So yeah, I have issues with those.
It's like
I
the
used
Bath
to
and
sell
Body
those
Works
and
problem,
I hated it.
you know, like.
Yeah, Bath and Body Works I also have an issue with, which is a sister company to Victoria's Secret, but it's fine.
But you don't work there anymore. So
I don't work there anymore.
You can trash talk them all you want.
I honestly, no, I never liked Bath and Body Works because mostly it was like, this is all just a waste. When you talk about like gift sets in general, because I was looking for specifically a perfume sampler gift set of like, I just want a tiny 0.5 ounce cologne bottle for James to like try multiples of. He can use them all, decide what he likes, and then we can buy a big bottle instead of wasting a big bottle. But with your point, there are all these sets with like, it's a big cologne and a small cologne and a lotion, or like a wash or something. And it's actually really hard to find gifts with that mindset of like, when you're looking at sets specifically, of like, I want to sample everything, use it, recycle what I've used, and then pick my bigger purchase.
Right.
It's very bizarre.
Well, no, it's actually not that bizarre because this is what's going to be going to get them to make you purchase something that's more expensive. You know, like they're like, oh, we're actually not going to give you the option that's going to let you sort of try a bunch of little things, because instead you'll buy a big thing, not like it, buy another big thing, not be too, try another one, buy another big perfume, and then you wound up spending 3 times as much as you would have in the first place.
That is true.
And I think that is one thing that is sort of part of the crux of all of this, is that so much of this is built on capitalism and profit. I know that people talk about like holidays that were essentially just invented by Hallmark in order to like sell cards, like Valentine's Day or
but like kind of
I mean
yes,
they've also
actually
taken holidays like Christmas that came from like a very religious origin and very sort of sacred, as we're celebrating like the birth of the Messiah, and taken it and been like, oh, we're going to tack all of these other things on top of this, and we're gonna profit on this like generosity that's part of this season.
I
which
will
is
also ruin the cards. Those cards have about a 300% profit margin, so you know.
Well, lately it's like $10.99 is like not unheard of to spend on a piece of paper.
Nope. That's not
just
my destiny.
make your own card.
Make your own
It's really
cards,
not that
people.
big of a deal.
And think of all the kindness that goes into it and the thought and care and love.
Yeah. Like, just because that card is convenient, and then you can, like, under the generic message it gives you, right, love Emma. Like, that's not heartfelt.
No.
You know, like, that's not putting effort into it. Also, why do you even need to get someone a card? If you already got them a gift, why do you need to give them a card if you're there?
Cards.
Yeah, if you're there,
I'm not
especially
a card person.
Especially if you're there with them, like, you can tell them how you feel. You can say, Merry Christmas. I'm so excited for you to open this gift. I love you. I hope that you enjoy this. This is something I think that you would like, or that I know you want, or things like that. Like, why do we even do that?
We should also destigmatize money.
Oh,
there is
best.
nothing
Give me
wrong
cash
with giving someone money.
Yes.
My mother-in-law actually, she doesn't like buying useless crap for people because she's like, I'm over that.
Yeah.
And so actually last Christmas, instead of like giving us gifts or whatever, she like gave each of us like little money gifts, and then each one was dedicated to a specific thing. So she's like, here is for you, and then here's a little one because I want you and your husband to have a date night, and then here's like, you know, for anything you want to do with it or whatever. I don't even remember exactly how she split it up, but she had a dedicated amount that she wanted to give to each of her kids, and she divided it up and said, I want you to dedicate this much to a date night, this much to a personal gift and like this much for your savings account or whatever it was. I don't even remember. But I love that idea, is that like you can give someone money, but like dedicate it to something. It's like, I want you to pick out a pair of jeans that you would like, or whatever it is, you know, that they need. I think that is perfectly acceptable.
Yeah.
No, totally.
Agreed. And I think that on top of that, another thing that we need to destigmatize of the many things that we've mentioned,
Right.
is to think of like giving people an experience instead.
Yes.
For example, the Kellys for my birthday they donated to a park preserve that works with wildlife and nature preservation in the area, and then also a trip to that preserve to go on a hike there and to experience it and to see the beautiful place that they have now sewn into like on my behalf. Like, that's an amazing gift, and like that's something that you can do for people instead of feeling like, I think people feel like, oh, well, if I don't get the gratification of seeing them open that thing that day, then it was like a bad Christmas or a bad birthday. And it's, no, actually, like, they're going to be so excited to be able to spend that time with you, their friend, their family member, their loved one, like, and have that experience. It's going to be way more valuable than some random gift that you got them that wasn't actually something that they needed or wanted.
Yeah. Or even a practical gift. Like, James needs a new coat. For Christmas, he is getting a new coat and a pair of rain boots because the man doesn't own rain boots. And I know he'll have that coat and pair of rain boots for like the next 10 years. Like, he's going to use it over and over and over again. And I think people are like, extravagant is not practical. And actually, I think you can have both.
Yeah. I mean, I so often ask for things that I genuinely just like need. Like, I asked my family for a new hard drive as one of my Christmas gifts this year because I'm running out of space on my hard drive because we record hour-long podcasts and it's filling up all my memory. And so, like, I need a new hard drive. That'd be amazing. They're like $90. I don't want to pay for one.
Exactly.
You guys can get me one for Christmas.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I think that that's another thing. Like, there's so many stigmas, so many expectations, so many sort of like qualifiers that we have for what makes a Christmas gift. And we just need to work on breaking those down and breaking that stigma. And I think there's been slow steps towards it that I've seen, especially in the like sort of environmentalist niches that I follow, of people talking about normalizing secondhand gifts or handmade gifts or even just purchasing things locally. Think about your Christmas dinner. Like, can you get the Christmas ham from a local farmer or from a producer that's nearby? Can you get those vegetables from the farmer's market? Like, can you take steps to make that more environmentally friendly? And if your family is one of those families that freaking uses paper plates every Christmas,
don't
tell them to stop. At the very, very, very minimum, buy recycled paper plates. Those are purchasable. But really, like, find ways to figure out washing all of those dishes. Find ways to make that a family event, that you are all together washing the dishes, that you're in an assembly line. Like, put on some Christmas music and you'll get through the mess, even though it seems like it's inconquerable. There's so many little things that you could switch up in your Christmas routine. Don't go on December 26th to the big box stores and buy all of the Christmas decorations that are on sale because it's a deal, and then you're going to throw out all of your old Christmas decorations and replace them with these new ones. Like, that's just more of that cycle mindset of things are just going bad. And like, that's something people literally line up outside of stores to do, is to just buy more decorations.
You can reuse your decorations.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Reuse your decorations, reuse your fake Christmas tree, buy a fake Christmas tree secondhand, go chop down your own Christmas tree with the National Park Service, find one from a local farm where like those trees are actually contributing to oxygen levels in the earth because they're growing them, and then you can then use them and then put them into your city's compost. Don't just throw them away.
Feed them to the goats at your local farm.
Exactly.
That's what I did last year.
There's so many little things that you can do to just tweak your holiday experience.
Yeah.
And I think that there's so much, I think about with the decorations thing, like almost all of the Christmas decorations I own are just ones that my mom didn't want anymore. And I think they're so special because they're ones that I actually grew up with.
Yeah.
Like they're ones that I saw in my house when I was little. And then she was like, oh, I have these extra ones here, and passing them down in your family.
Yeah.
There's so many different steps you could take that are actually really special in terms of your Christmas experience. Like,
and all of that being said, we just want to dispel shame and guilt.
Yes.
And, don't be overwhelmed by the amount of things that you could be doing, because we all are living our lives. We all got shit to do. Like, we all are busy women beings trying to make it in this life. So when it comes to like the stress levels rising as you listen to this podcast about like, oh my gosh, many pounds of stuff are going to the landfill. I mean, like, channel that.
Yeah.
But I'm a firm believer in like small conscious steps towards a more sustainable life. So we're not asking do everything now, like get rid of all plastic and go vegan and never, I don't know, never throw anything away ever again. Like, we're not saying that, but we are saying that like if everybody was taking small steps towards a more sustainable future, it would actually make a huge impact on our environment.
Absolutely.
Huge.
Absolutely. Be kind to yourself. You got to live your life, but also it's like a health journey. Like, you're not going to stop all sugar cold turkey.
Right.
Like, very few people that do that are actually successful. Like, you have to take small steps. Like, maybe it's like, okay, instead of, throwing away my old towels that are ratty, I'm going to cut them up and use them as rags. And maybe we can try going a month without paper towels, feel it out, see how it goes. If we absolutely hate our lives, we can go back. But maybe we try to use our paper towels and our rags 50-50. So it's still less paper products that we're utilizing.
And just throwing
away. Like, your life doesn't have to suck is what I want people to know. Like, you can be sustainable and work towards things.
Right.
And that actually doesn't mean you're a terrible person because you're in process.
Totally.
Now you doing nothing and being educated, that's a little different, but like there's a dance.
Well, even like Emma had mentioned, like Chipotle napkins, they always give you way more than you need.
Yeah.
Don't throw them away.
Save those suckers.
Save them. Never buy napkins again. Literally, like the past 2 years since I've been here, I have not purchased, well, that's not true. I did purchase one set of really cute Thanksgiving napkins last year, but I digress. Since then, I have not purchased one napkin. Not one. Because I've had plenty. And Chipotle napkins are great. And I think they're made out of recycled paper anyways. And so you might as well use them.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Chipotle is fairly sustainable. Like, there's this thing that's called eco-anxiety, which is the anxiety that builds on people as they learn more and more of the impact.
It's really bad. It's really bad out there.
Yeah. And I think that we've lived sort of in our perfect, westernized bubble for a long time. And I think that bubble's been slowly popping and closing in on us a bit over the past decade or so. But I think that if you feel guilt, we can take that guilt and that shame and we can use it instead to motivate us and to take those small steps. And I also want to remind you that there's actually no time that's a bad time to start making those lifestyle changes. I think that, for example, when I first went vegan, I started very slowly sort of integrating different things, and I realized almond milk isn't disgusting, and I can order the same bowl that I would get at Chipotle but just without cheese, and it's actually good, and realizing little things where I'm this is how I can implement this into my life and integrate this. And one thing that's actually sort of a weird comfort to me is remembering that the way that we live, the way that we consume products right now is very new. This has only been the case for the past 100 years or so with the invention of things like plastics and all of these disposable goods. People lived much more sustainably several hundred years ago because that was the only way to live. They only had rags to clean up their things. They only had a certain amount of clothing. They could only go to the local market and get things that they needed. They couldn't go online shopping and get anything in the entire world. And so like in my mind, I'm like, if those people were okay, I'm okay. Like being able to do those things and make those like quote unquote sacrifices that are actually things that people have lived without for millennia.
And I think oftentimes, at least for me in my life, because I grew up not very financially advantaged, I think for me, sustainability always felt like it was an expensive thing. Like, oh, like I can't afford expensive jeans or whatever. But there are actually a lot of environmental practices that will actually save you a lot of money and time. For example, I bought cleaning concentrate at the store. It was like $6.99 or something, $7.99. And then I had a spray bottle that I can use and reuse again. So it takes like a teaspoon of this concentrate to go in this bottle and it creates the cleaning solution that I need. And in doing that, I have saved, like, by the time I get through this bottle, I will have saved like 400 bottles of, like, spray bottles of individual spray bottles that cost $3.99 a piece. So that's like $800 to $1,000 worth of cleaning supplies that I've literally, like, I've spent $12 on. And so there are actually a lot of sustainable practices when you do reduce and make smart decisions about where your, you know, whatever is coming from, that will actually save you a lot of money long term, because you're actually conserving the money it takes to spend on the things that are not sustainable.
Totally. I think that's an interesting point as well, with like also growing up poor and now being on my own and making my own money. It's like, oh, I can buy what I want. And like for me, that was a huge thing of like, I am empowered to buy what I want for like the first time in my life. And that was amazing. And so for a year, maybe I just bought whatever I wanted. But then I was also like, oh, you like when you have that purchasing power, that also comes with responsibility. And so now I thrift all the time. And when I was younger, like that is not the cool thing. You can't find cool like thrift clothes. Best. But I would encourage you to just broaden your horizons, because I found a freaking Dolce & Gabbana jacket at Goodwill for $12.99. And, you know, things like that. Or like, you know, I really love books. Like books are my favorite, and that's not something I'm willing to give up. But I know that's something I'm going to be keeping and for the rest of my life. Like I've never given away any books ever, because that's not my style. But I now buy them secondhand, or I buy them from a local used bookstore, or, you know, however I can not be creating that one more unit of print to order on the planet, but also like enjoy the things you enjoy. Just do it mindfully.
Yeah. And like, I mean, there's never going to be a perfect, like, humans are going to continue to generate waste, and we're going to continue to have to, like, process it.
Yes.
But every little step is a benefit. So it's like, we're not trying to be perfect here, but we are saying, like, there's actually, like, pretty easy things that you can do that will make a big difference. And then the more you grow in that, the more it'll just be, like, second nature. So
yeah. I mean, I think that we so often just do the thing that we're used to doing,
right,
or the thing that our parents did, or whatever is like, oh, this is just what we always do. And so you don't consider like, oh, what if I just bought cleaning concentrate instead? Or what if I just went to the thrift store to see if they had the thing that I'm looking for?
Right.
Like we just need to have that slight shift in our mindset, and in like, as we become more and more of a conscious consumer, you'll find it easier and easier to think of those things,
right,
and to realize like, oh wait, how can I do this thing sustainably?
Right.
Or how can I do this? Like I didn't even think about doing this sustainably, but now I'm like, wait, I realize this is actually really wasteful.
Yeah.
So I think that's definitely, it's part of the process.
Yeah.
But also as we're sort of closing it all out, I do want to touch on, there is this personal responsibility that we have, but the biggest contributors to waste, to environmental damage are actually really big corporations and government bodies. And so what we can do to impact that is actually not just voting with our dollar, but voting with our vote. Our ballots.
Yes. And not just in elections, like in when we are deciding who our candidates are going to be. Like 2 years before the election, you have to be involved in local.
Yes. Local government is very important because local government officials are the people that become state government officials, who are the people that become national government officials. And so there's this whole trickle through of that, and that can also feel really overwhelming, and I just want to touch on it because the responsibility is not all on you, but we can take those small steps that show corporations and companies that this is actually something that we as consumers care about.
Well, and so both your vote, and then even the more people start to make decisions that are sustainably focused, the more corporations are going to actually be forced to change their business approach in order to meet the demands. Like, we determine the demand.
Yeah.
And so that is kind of like, it's like, which came first, the chicken or the egg? It's all like intermingled. You got to hit it everywhere, pretty much.
I think that sometimes the consumer feels powerless. They're like, well, this is just what they've given me. These are the options I have. But they are actually solely dependent on us.
Yep.
So we have that power to force them to change. Anyways,
that was a good one, guys.
Really uplifted right now. I'm sure you are as well. Christmas cheer and joy.
I hope that this is not totally sort of gloom and doom to you guys, because we really want to offer practical solutions to you, and this can be something that's motivating and exciting to be like, you get to try things and get to start your environmental journey or continue it or learn more about it, and how to be a consumer that is still thinking about the earth, still be thinking about the individual people that are impacted by your purchases and their lives and their souls and their hearts. And so all of that to say,
start small and be smart.
Yes. And we wish you a Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Catch you next week. Oh, also, wait, don't catch you. Hold on.
Hold the phone.
Be sure to follow us.
Please follow us.
As your Christmas gift to us, give us a follow at Woman Being Podcast on Instagram. You can go to our website, check it out, womanbeingcommunity.com. And the icing, the best Christmas gift that we could receive this year.
Sustainable, too.
It's sustainable. Is to receive a rating and a review from you on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts, YouTube even. Give us a comment, give us a like, give us a subscribe, because not many of you are on YouTube.
Pretty please.
Well, and that's the thing too, is like, if you love the content that we're pouring out, or if you think there's people in your life that would love, literally just like commenting when we post, putting a little emoji up there saying like yes, really simple stuff that actually really boosts our algorithm, and it helps us grow as a podcast and small business. So any of your support in that way, likes, comments, reviews especially, those make all the difference. So
if you have someone,
that's our Christmas list.
Yes.
If you have someone in your family who uses disposable plates, share this podcast episode with them. And tell them, Aunt Sally, you need to listen to this.
And then offer Aunt Sally to help her wash the dishes.
Exactly.
Aww.
Give her a hand.
Give her the greatest gift, the gift of an act of service.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna wrap this up just like a Christmas gift.
Put a little bow on it.
Without tape.
Exactly, without tape, because tape is just plastic going into a landfill. Merry Christmas, guys.